Hello, Fairly Secret Music Group. This is David, and today I'm going to tell you about the bands that I gave a second chance to. The first one is Pink Floyd. In the 90s, I got into a band called Voivod. So they had done a cover of Astronomy Domini, or Domine, however you pronounce it, and I thought that was great. So I gave these guys a chance, and I really liked this album at the time. That was around 1994. The Division Bell or Pulse had just come out, and I didn't really go any further than that. I then tried out all their albums in 2007. I was doing a email group with some friends where I would listen to the top prog rock groups like Genesis, King Crimson, Gentle Giant, Pink Floyd, all in chronological order. So I'd listen to all the first albums, then all the second albums. Unfortunately, with Pink Floyd, after this album, you get like Saucer Full of Secrets and Metal and Obscured by Clouds and more. So it wasn't a good way to listen to them because you were listening to all those really psychedelic albums that didn't have what Pink Floyd then became. The thing that turned it around was I bought this Dave Gilmour CD at a Barnes & Noble for $5, and I don't know why I did. Maybe I needed something new, and I had read some stuff on it. Maybe I had heard some Pink Floyd stuff and thought, maybe I'll give the Dave Gilmour solo thing a shot. This thing started growing on me like fungus. It grabbed me by the first time I was listening to it and made me want to listen to it again and again. And eventually I decided maybe it was time to give Pink Floyd a shot again. And I don't think I'd ever listened to Wish You Were Here because I don't remember ever hearing Shine On You Crazy Diamonds. I knew Wish You Were Here, but Welcome to the Machine and Have a Cigar were all new to me, basically, because I never got to them the first time around. So this album really pulled me in. I listened to this like 5-6 times in a row on YouTube one day and thought, okay, do I need to move on to another one and just make sure? Well, sure enough, I had also never listened to Dark Side of the Moon. Somebody had burned me a copy at one point, and I don't think I ever listened to it. I knew the song Time and Money, but I really didn't know much of the rest of it. And again, it just pulled me in a little deeper. Then I got Animals, and this album my friend Woody loves. Look at the packaging alone. Pigs on a Wing, I always thought was pretty good, but all the rest of the songs on this album are just stellar. And again, they just pulled me in a little further. So then I thought, okay, I've heard Pink Floyd The Wall. Let's give that a shot. And after I got these 3 or 4 albums, I decided, yep, that's it. I'm going to get them all. So luckily, Barnes & Noble was having a sale, and I had a discount, and I got them all for like 30% off, and most of them were in the $5.99 to $7.99 range at that time. The one album that was harder to find was The Final Cut, and this album is just not that great. Dave Gilmour says, if these songs weren't good enough to be on the wall, then why the hell were they good enough for the next Pink Floyd album? And this is the brainchild, again, of Roger Waters. It kind of does more of the same subject matter, losing his dad, the war, and stuff like that. And I know he's done a couple solo albums, I believe, that have had the same thing. And just, it's time to move on. Get a new subject, dude. Honestly, Division Bell is actually way better, in my opinion, than the Final Cut. There are some great guitar textures on here. I think the band sounds more cohesive. Of course, Final Cut was like, again, Roger Waters doing everything on his own, or not again, but what ended up being him doing everything on his own, I believe, whereas The Wall was more of a group effort, but I think everything had been strained from that album. So, Division Bell. I even really like their last thing that they did that I don't have right here. The one that has one song with vocals. I thought it was amazing listening to it in 5.1. So, the next band that I said I would never get into is the Rolling Stones. I've had an ongoing argument that the Stones were worse than the Beatles, that the Beatles could do no wrong. I still kind of believe that. Granted, earlier Beatles has less interest for me, but my friend Mike is a huge Rolling Stones fan, and he and I would kind of nudge each other about Beatles versus Stones when we'd work together. One time I sent him a picture of Paul McCartney, and he told me to quit sending him Beatle propaganda. And one day I was watching, well, I had already watched 40 Feet from Stardom, which kind of piqued my interest because of the footage of, or the talk interview with the woman who sang on Give Me Shelter. The rape murder is just a shot away part, and that piqued my interest. I was like, dang it, do I have to eat my words? And I thought, no, I'll just wait, and I have enough other things to buy. Then I watched the Keith Richards documentary on Netflix, and there was footage of them in the studio. I am a sucker for making of videos or documentaries on bands. It usually gets me into stuff. Mastodon's Blood Mountain had a making of DVD. So did Opeth for Deliverance and Damnation. And those documentaries just made me love those bands. The one band that it didn't do that on was the Twisted Sister documentary. I watched that thinking, oh great, I'm going to have to get some more stuff besides Stay Hungry. And by the time I was done with the Twisted Sister documentary, I thought, do I even need to keep Stay Hungry? Because I don't know, I'll plead the fifth on that one. So I decided to do kind of a, let's see, like I don't have the complete discography of Rolling Stones. I decided I didn't want to really get any of their stuff where they're mainly doing covers of blues songs with like one or two songs that they had wrote. Between the Buttons, I believe, is the furthest back I go. I might be wrong by one or two albums, but Let It Bleed just pulled me in further after I watched that documentary. Sticky Fingers, my friend Chris gave me a copy of this on vinyl, the new remastered version, and honestly, I don't even have a turntable that works. So I knew I was going to buy this, and he had 2 copies, and I thought, yeah, I'll take it, I'll listen to it on vinyl, and then I found out my turntable didn't work. One of the things that throughout my life, like since, oh God, when did this album come out? Sorry, I don't have my, 81. So in 81, I was 9 years old, and I was waiting for my brother to pick me up to go to the comic book store, and I kept on singing Waiting on a Friend. So that has kind of a history with me, with my brother. So that was another thing that just pulled me in and made me go, yeah, I need to give the Rolling Stones another damn shot. So then the next artist that I said, no, I'm not interested, was David Bowie. And you're probably thinking, David Bowie, really? What kind of a dork are you? Well, I had a bunch of David Bowie stuff, and it just did nothing to me, nothing for me at the time. That was about 11 years ago. I had bought Tin Machine's first album on cassette when that first came out, and I always thought it was pretty good. You know, the Sale Brothers were a great rhythm section. Reeves Gabriel is a phenomenal guitarist, and I thought Bowie's voice sounded a lot different, to me at least, at the time. And, you know, this was, 89? I was such a metalhead way back then that I didn't want anything unless it was super heavy or had a singer that was going, wah, you know. But Heaven's in Here and the song Tin Machine were always pretty good. So I had this on cassette for some reason, and I had picked this up on CD probably for $2-3 or something like that. I didn't give it much of a listen, but around 2012, I decided, okay, I'm going to give David Bowie another shot. And I listened to Diamond Dogs, and there's a song called Sweet Thing on this album. And if you're familiar with this album, you know the part where he says, can you see that I'm sad and lonely? And the way he sings is just amazing. And I really wished for a long time that's how David Bowie sang everything. Of course, that wouldn't make him David Bowie if he sang like that. The thing that I really wanted was I wanted him to sound more like David Sylvian every time I listened to him, until I got, you know, that out of my head, that no, this is a totally different kind of guy with a lower voice who uses vibrato in a totally different way. I think that was the kind of hurdle. Well, the day after Black Star came out, I was reading stuff on the internet, and or maybe it was the weekend after Black Star came out, I found out that he had died either a little bit after or a little bit before I listened to Lazarus. And I know what you're saying. Oh, he got into him after he's dead. Fine. Yeah, maybe I did. But had I not heard Lazarus or the song Black Star, I probably still wouldn't be into Bowie. Lazarus, honestly, along with that video, everything clicked in my mind. It was just like, oh my God, I finally get Bowie's vocal delivery and the drumming and the bass playing and just everything on this album was amazing. I really wish this band would have been able to do a follow-up with him. I've been meaning to look into their own discography. I can't remember what the band's name is at the time. But this was the album that really got me into it. There are a couple other things with Bowie discography that I can tell you about. I'm a huge King Crimson fan, and until I saw King Crimson about a year ago with the 3-drummer lineup, Heroes never really connected with me until I saw them playing that live. And then I went back to the studio version and I realized how good this song was. For some reason, I thought it went on and on and on. But this album became more significant to me after I saw them play that live. Of course, the second half of this album is not as hot or tight or whatever. It's not as crisp as the first half. I think it loses kind of some momentum, but who am I to criticize? Let's Dance was another thing that I've always loved by Bowie. I love his vocals on this, and that was one of the few vocal parts that, even when I wasn't interested in David Bowie, always shone through all the rest of my negativity. Was just the way he sings on this, just the groove on the song. I remember watching the video on MTV when it first came out. Yeah, so it took Bowie's Black Star to get me into David Bowie, but I think I'm a more rich person for it. The last band, Sly and the Family Stone. There was a point where I had, I believe, the first 5 or 6 albums and this greatest hits, and I sold everything down to the greatest hits and Life. I know what you're thinking. What kind of sick son of a bitch sells Sly and the Family Stone? Well, this stupid son of a bitch did. I don't understand it. I don't. Years later, so that was like 2007 when I had that. I think I needed money at the time. I'm not sure. The album I should have never, ever, ever got rid of was their first album, A Whole New Thing. This album has Underdog, If This Room Could Talk, Turn Me Loose, Let Me Hear It From You, which is Larry Graham, the grandfather of funk, singing some sweet, smooth song lyrics to his lady. And it's fantastic. It's so good. There's also a song called, what is it? Trip to Your Heart. Until I did a podcast with a friend, I didn't know that this was the music behind LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out. Just amazing. And then there are albums like Dance to the Music. What was I thinking? This has Dance to the Music and the song Higher on it. What? Life? At least I kept Life, because this has, it has Dynamite and Chicken and Plastic Jim. Plastic Jim is so awesome. The reason I kept this one was because Plastic Jim was not on this compilation. It was, who made this compilation and did not put Plastic Jim on it? What an idiot. Some of the mid-period stuff was, there's a riot going on, and, oh God, what was that album called? Stand. Yeah, so those albums were a period where Sly decided he was going to use drum machines and stuff like that and do everything on his own. You're not going to have Larry Graham play on your stuff, and you have Larry Graham at your disposal. I mean, sure, he did play on some of the stuff, but he was using drum machines. He had Greg Errico. Who uses a drum machine when you have somebody that is that good? But those albums don't really do it as much for me. Not as much as like Fresh or Family Affair. Fresh has a song called If You Want Me to Leave. My friend Becky has a radio show in Alaska, and she plays a lot of Sly and the Family Stone, and that is her favorite song. And the final album that one must have in their collection of later Sly and the Family Stone stuff is High on You. The title track is fantastic. It embraces what I loved about early Sly and the Family Stone. It's funky, it's catchy, and, I don't understand why I would have ever gotten rid of this stuff. So, let me boop. the screen because I had a stupid little thing telling me I was close to running out of battery. And I want to let you know that I appreciate your comments and your likes and people subscribing. Let me know what bands you said you didn't like or thought you would never get into, but you did. And I'll talk to you on the next video.